I think there aren't many stories in the automotive industry that involve bringing back a household name like Studebaker, a lawsuit with General Motors, and a Ponzi scheme worth over $300 million. But that's exactly what happened with the Studebaker XUV, and in this video, we're taking a closer look at it. Studebaker goes way back. Long before cars, the company was building horse-drawn wagons. Fast forward to the 1960s, and Studebaker was building actual cars, including one of its last models, the Wagonaire. That car had something unusual for its time, a retractable roof section over the cargo area, letting you carry taller items without needing a truck, a clever idea that would show up again decades later in a completely different form. By 1966, Studebaker was done. The company shut down car production, and that seemed like the end of the story. Except it wasn't. Before the company disappeared, it introduced a coupe called the Avanti, and it stood out immediately. Not everyone agreed on how it looked, but it definitely didn't blend in. The car only stayed in production for a short time, but it built a following. Enough of one that two Studebaker dealers, Nathan Altman and Leo Newman, decided they weren't ready to let it go. They bought the tooling, took over part of the old factory in South Bend, and kept building the car themselves. It became the Avanti II, produced in small numbers as a luxury car with a loyal group of buyers. That continued for years, passing through different owners. By the early 2000s, the company was under the control of Michael Kelly, and this is where things take a very different turn. By the early 2000s, the market had changed. Big SUVs were everywhere, and buyers wanted something large and powerful. So instead of continuing with low-volume coupes, Michael Kelly decided to go in a completely different direction. He wanted an SUV, not just any SUV, something that would stand out in a crowded market, something big, something aggressive, and since Avanti had the rights to the Studebaker name for trucks, he decided to bring it back. That's how the Studebaker XUV was born. The name stood for Stream Utility Vehicle, which tells you exactly the kind of image they were going for. Underneath, the XUV was based on a Ford Super Duty pickup chassis from the 2003 and 2004 model years, so this wasn't a small project. This thing had serious size. The wheelbase measured 134 inches. The overall length reached 216 inches. Width came in at 84.5 inches and height at 85.5 inches. In simple terms, this was a very large vehicle. Weight sat around 6,000 pounds, putting it right in line with the biggest SUVs of the time. Power came from Ford engines. Buyers would have a choice between a 6.8-liter V10 producing 310 horsepower or a 6-liter Power-Stroke diesel V8 with 325 horsepower. There was even talk of a supercharged V10 pushing 425 horsepower. The XUV used a 5-speed automatic transmission and was built to handle serious use. The price was something else. Starting at around $75,000, this wasn't cheap. Adjusted for today, that would be around $135,000, putting it somewhere in the range of high-end luxury SUVs. The XUV had a long list of features, both standard and optional. Buyers could fully customize the vehicle. Exterior colors, interior materials, seat designs, carpeting, wood trim, it was all up to the owner. Inside it came with things like an in-dash CD changer, solar-tinted glass, and a range of luxury touches. Safety features included anti-lock brakes, airbags for both front occupants, side intrusion beams, and rear backup sensors. Then came the more unusual ideas. The XUV included power-sliding rear side doors, similar to a minivan, not something you'd expect on a large off-road style vehicle. It also had a retractable rear roof section, inspired by that old Studebaker Wagonaire from the 1960s. That same idea brought back decades later in a completely different type of vehicle. Optional extras included a GPS navigation system, a DVD player with a TV, a moonroof, heated seats, a brush guard, an extended roof rack, and even a winch mounted to the front bumper. So in terms of equipment, it had everything covered. The project was shown publicly for the first time at the 2003 Chicago Auto Show, and almost immediately there was a problem. It looked a lot like something else. More precisely, it looked a lot like the HUMMER H2. Same boxy shape, same overall presence, and General Motors noticed. General Motors filed a lawsuit against Avanti Motor Corporation. Their claim was simple. The Studebaker XUV copied the design of the Hummer H2 and could confuse buyers. They even pushed to have the vehicle removed from the show floor. That's a pretty serious move, especially considering this was still a prototype. Avanti didn't back down. Michael Kelly responded directly, saying there would be no confusion if the two vehicles were placed side by side. According to him, the XUV had its own identity. He pointed out that the truck was longer than the H2 by more than 2 feet, had a different hood shape, a distinct grille, and unique body details. He made it clear that no General Motors parts were used in the vehicle, and that the design came from Avanti itself. He even highlighted features that the H2 didn't have, like the sliding rear doors and retractable roof. Avanti claimed the lawsuit was an attempt by General Motors to control the market for this type of vehicle and block smaller companies from competing. And just to add another layer to the story, the Hummer H2 had already been involved in a separate design dispute with Daimler Chrysler over its grille, so now everyone was pointing fingers. The lawsuit brought a lot of attention to the XUV. People were talking about it. Articles were written. The vehicle became widely known. In a way, it was great publicity. The case was eventually settled outside of court, with Avanti agreeing to make design changes. A revised version of the XUV appeared at the 2004 Chicago Auto Show with those updates. So at that point, it looked like the project might actually move forward. Plans called for around 1,000 units per year, but that never happened. At first glance, it might seem like the lawsuit was the reason the truck didn't reach production, but that wasn't the main issue. In 2006, Michael Kelly was arrested. He was accused of running a large-scale fraud scheme involving timeshare leases and promissory notes. The case involved thousands of investors and hundreds of millions of dollars. After that, Avanti Motor Company collapsed. By 2007, it was gone, and with it, the Studebaker XUV project disappeared as well. In the end, the truck never made it past the prototype stage. No production models, no real presence on the road, just a concept that showed up, caused a lot of noise, and vanished. And in a way, this whole story reminds me of other attempts to bring old names back, like the 1999 Packard 12 prototype. Very different projects, but built around the same idea, bringing back a name that just couldn't quite make it work again. The information in this video was gathered from the sources shown on screen. As always, you can find the sources in the Google Doc linked in the description. I recommend checking them out for more details. If you enjoyed this video, there are a couple more on screen you might like. One takes a look at the Studebaker GT Hawk, a forgotten grand tour from the 60s, and the other covers the story of the Ford Aurora, which is still the most viewed video on the channel with over 600,000 views. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.